1300 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. I know you folks are listening all over the place. I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good, as I said, and I've got a ton of stuff to talk about today. Yes, sir, I do. I most certainly do. So we'll get into it. We'll start with, we've got a lot of stuff happening in the NFL as far as a huge trade that I think will get Deshaun Watson basically in the mix where his trade is going to be worth a lot more. And what I mean by that is that there's talk that it'll be 2 first-round picks. Yeah. The trade that Detroit just made with Matt Stafford, the Lions, I think, normally they're the team that, as their coach would say, they get punched around a lot. You know, we talked about this last week, and this is what Dan Campbell said about the Lions. And it's kind of interesting coming back to this. Check out this comment from new Lions coach Dan Campbell.
This place has been kicked, it's been battered, it's been bruised, and I can sit up here and give you coach speak all day long. I can give you, hey, we're going to win this weekend. I can't, but none of that matters, and you guys don't want to hear it anyway. You've had enough of that. So excuse my language. All right. Here's what I do know is that this team is going to take on the identity of this city. All right. And this city's been down, and it found a way to get up. It's found a way to overcome adversity. And so this team's going to be built on, we're going to kick you in the teeth. All right. And when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. All right. And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap. And we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of it. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing. All right, that's going to be the mentality.
All right, so that's Lions coach Dan Campbell. And by the way, the Lions are doing that right now with the trade they got for Matt Stafford, who, let's be honest, has been a good quarterback, but he's played on a lot of crummy teams. All right, so we'll get into that in just a moment. But I got to start with the college football world was kind of rocked yesterday with former LSU tight end Eric Gilbert. Now, this guy was projected to be the number 1 tight end of all time. If you looked at composite scores and all of that, there were LSU fans, I'm not joking, that were telling me, Rob, this guy's going to be better than Kyle Pitts. You don't know what you're talking about. This guy's going to be better than Kyle Pitts, Rob. Absolutely outstanding. He's going to come in. He's going to be better than Kyle Pitts, even his freshman year. Now, of course, I laughed at them uncontrollably because no one was going to come in and be a freshman and do what Kyle Pitts does. Of course, I think he's a top 15 draft pick, by the way. But here's the interesting part. This kid, and I say kid, he's a grown man, 6'5", 249 pounds with 4.7 40 speed. And a 35-inch vertical. He's far from being a kid, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? This guy decided, hey, I'm going to transfer from LSU, and I'm going to go to Florida. Now, he said, hey, it has something to do with the fact that I'm homesick. Really? I'm not really buying all of that, but the reality is I come back to this, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you don't want to be somewhere, as far as a team or what have you, then go. Move on. Feel the same way about Deshaun Watson. We'll get back to that momentarily a little bit later on. But this young man decided, hey, I don't want to be at LSU. It could be anything. It could be he doesn't like the way the offense is set up there. It could be he doesn't like the new offensive coordinator that's coming in. He doesn't like his quarterback. It could be anything. But he's decided to go and take his, as LeBron James would say, I'm taking my talents to the Florida. And that's what he's basically doing. But here's the other interesting part. I found this stat, and this is really good. The last 18 months, Florida has added 5 former 5-star recruits through the transfer portal. To give you some idea about that, only 5 teams in the FBS had more than a quintet of former 5-star prospects on their roster last year. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and LSU. So they got former 5-star player Justin Shorter, the number 1 overall receiver from Penn State. He was the number 1 overall receiver in the 2018 class. So Florida next year, they're going to have Gilbert and this guy, the big wide receiver from 2018 on that Florida team. In addition to that, as far as running back goes, they had former Clemson transfer DeMarcus Bowman, the number 3 overall back in the 2020 class. So that's going to help that running game that averaged about 4.5 yards a carry last season. I think that, once again, Dan Mullen is a guy that is a good offensive coach. His off-the-field stuff is insane. The stuff with his wife kissing players on the bus is insane. I don't necessarily agree with all of that, okay? But you got to give Dan Mullen credit for what he's doing here by going through the transfer portal and getting some guys to come to the Florida program. And here's the other interesting part. He's doing it at a rate where these guys aren't going to go to, let's say, if you're Florida, they're not going to go to Georgia. These big recruits aren't going to Alabama to help Alabama out. They're not going to Clemson. They're not going to end up facing these guys. So keeping them away from the other teams is really good. Really, really good on that front if you're a Florida Gators fan. But just some interesting stuff there with Florida. Their likely starting quarterback next year is going to be Emory Jones. I don't know if Emory Jones can throw the ball around or not. He didn't really look good against Oklahoma, but hey, where are we going to go from there? But that's an interesting thing there with Florida being that hot on the recruiting trail. Now, how does that translate to around here? Well, here in Columbia, South Carolina has to play Florida. And they're going to have to see a lot of these transfers, so something to think about there. If you want to talk about the Florida program and the recruits that they're getting, because I didn't realize they had that many guys coming in. 803-978-1832 is the number to call. 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to talk about that. Also, we're going to get into the Deshaun Watson stuff and how that trade over the weekend has made it interesting for Deshaun Watson. Now, here's the other thing with this. There's talk about, he wants a trade. And I'm in the camp of, and I've said this earlier, if you want to be somewhere else and you don't want to be here, then fine. We're going to find somewhere else for you to go. Because let's say that Houston and what their general manager says when he referred to him as that player, by the way, his own words, that player, that's an interesting thing. I don't know how that happens. I mean, I know these guys are, a lot of the general managers are guys that look at, numbers and everything else. But the reality is Deshaun Watson is a person, just like every other player on that team. And by the way, Deshaun Watson is the most important person on your team. You can say J.J. Watt if you want, but J.J. Watt's at the end of his career. No disrespect to the one of the great defensive players of our era here, but if they had the choice of keeping Watt or Watson, they're going to go with Watson every day. All right, so there's that. But here's the other interesting thing on this front. He referred to him as that player, thinking that, okay, he's got this contract here and he's going to stay. Now, I'm definitely in the realm of if you sign a contract, you should be man enough to stand up for that contract and go with it. But when Deshaun Watson signed that contract, things were different. He had a different head coach, had his number 1 receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, on the team. All of that in the mix there. So with that, things have changed. Definitely. The general manager's changed. The coach has changed. He's been through 2 different coaches since then. So, yeah, things change a little bit, and I don't know if I want a guy on any team that's not motivated to be there. You think Deshaun Watson's going to really play as hard? I mean, I doubt that. I mean, he'll probably play as hard as he could, but he'll be more motivated to go play somewhere else. Now, if I'm Houston, I'm looking at this and what the Lions did where they did what Dan Campbell said they were going to do. They went out and they kicked somebody in the teeth, took out their kneecaps, etc. What the Lions got for that pick or that quarterback with Matt Stafford is amazing. Now, remember this. Matt Stafford is a guy that is 33 years old. 33 years old. So that's kind of long in the tooth in the NFL stage. Now, granted, he hasn't had an opportunity to shine because Detroit has been so terrible, but none of that's really had anything to do with him. He's been a really, above average quarterback. I think he rates out as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So with that, I look at it from this perspective. He's 33, but he's older. He's not Deshaun Watson good. Let's make sure we put that out there. Deshaun Watson's 25 and has his whole career ahead of him. All right. So Detroit managed to get him to a spot where, because they have respect for Stafford, who's done everything that he could to try to bring the Motor City into the playoffs, etc. They just didn't have everything else with him. So with that, they get Jared Goff and 2 first-round draft picks. That's what the Rams gave up to get Matt Stafford. Now, remember this too. I don't know if there was something that people weren't quite with it as far as Jared Goff out in LA, but this is a guy that took a team to the Super Bowl. So he's not terrible. Let's make sure we put that out there. They got a serviceable quarterback and 2 first-round picks for a guy that, was, and I don't mean to say he was at the bottom, but what else could he do for them? That's amazing to me. Absolutely amazing to me. So does that mean that the case goes up for Deshaun Watson? Now, the 4-letter network, as we've talked about, they're going to tell you that he's going to the Jets. And I get that. But there are other teams that can feasibly put some stuff together. One team that he said that he had no interest in, according to several reports, is the Denver Broncos. So you might want to throw them out of the mix. But he may have interest in going to the Panthers, going to the Jets, if we want to throw the Jets in there. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us for the rundown this afternoon. Alan says it's an even trade, Rob. Blake says it's Watson is 25-28, 1-2 in the playoffs. Sir, those numbers are inflated a little bit because he played on a 4-12 team this season. So of those 28 losses, 12 of them came this season, where they traded away his best receiver and they traded. They had the worst defense in the NFL. Out to the phones we go. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rob. It's Bobby and Casey.
Bobby, what you got for the program today, sir?
Well, I'm going to take it away from the Deshaun Watson rumors because riding around in the car, they got too overbearing over the weekend. All right. Number one, Chipper Jones is the new part-time batting coach with the Atlanta Braves. I just sent you that from Mark Weiser.
That's a good thing.
It's Hall of Famer in 2018 for anybody, us local natives people down here where there was no baseball except for the Braves in the Southeast. So that's great.
Well, I thought you were going to say for local people that don't know who Chipper Jones is.
Well,
you're living under a rock. Come on, man. Chipper Jones
they're transplantees moving to South Carolina from the Northeast. That might not be in love with baseball. Part of my French, like us old white guys.
Well,
that might not be in love with Major League Baseball.
I'm going to throw this at you.
The Yankees and the Giants and the Jets, and that's it.
I think Chipper Jones is one of the best switch hitters of all time, and I don't want to hear people telling me about Eddie Murray. He's better than Eddie Murray.
Yeah, look what Mike Weiser sent out. I didn't realize he had all those with Henry Aaron just passing away and all the great years he was with the Braves. Look at all the records with the Braves franchise Chipper has.
Yeah.
He leads them all.
That's true.
If you want to look at the what's going on Twitter right now, I didn't realize he had all 19 years too. Wow.
Yeah, he was great.
And then also close to me because me being from Miami and I love hockey. The Panthers with Mellenby and the whole legend of the Rat, because he did spend the majority of his playing years with the Flyers and the Panthers, and the whole story about the rat in the Miami Arena. And then they started tossing the rats on the ice, the plastic ones, when they scored a goal. But Jim Rutherford, I don't know if you brought it up or I had called in, resigned from the Penguins, and he's possibly going to 6, leaving Montreal. And I could take a whole hour explain why Montreal can never win a cup again, even though my last name is French Canadian, and I grew up watching the Flying French. And I'm excited for him, because I don't know if he hit Mario Lemieux hard with his stick when he played Flyers against the Penguins. And you're laughing because you know what a rivalry that was. But yep. Mario's willing to hire him as his new GM. And I think Scotty, everybody calls him affectionately Scotty in Miami, would be a great fit for there. If you want to get out of Montreal, go to Pittsburgh. But I know, like Hank Goldberg said, hockey talk kills ratings. So I thought I'd mention that in you. I had read it in French and misunderstood it. He wasn't hired. I had sent you a tweet. He's being considered.
Well, thank you for that, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's exciting because Lemieux wants to win. He's got to get him winning because he's against a lot in the Steelers. That kind of is a football town.
Yep.
Seeing the Pirates don't spend a lot of money to ever be a perennial winner.
Yep.
So he's got to keep on winning, and they need to equally share the revenue there with the NHL and whatever network they're going to be on, because NBC Sports Network's going out. So they're going to be streamed on Peacock, or they'll be against wrestling, which they'll probably lose out on USA Network, or be on Sunday afternoon hockey. So
you're right about that.
So okay. Anyway, thanks for letting me ramble on about hockey. I know there's not a lot of hockey fanatics since the Inferno died out.
Hockey, man. I like hockey.
All right, I know you do.
All right, brother.
Take care, Rob.
Appreciate it, man. All right, Bobby joining the program today. Thanks for bringing that stuff up, and I might do a special little podcast every now and then about hockey. So subscribe to the podcast feed if you're into hockey. Rundown with Rob. It's on the iHeartRadio app, Apple, iTunes, all of that. You can find that on the podcast. Several comments that are over here. G Bama Boy, following on YouTube, says he thinks Urban Meyer is going to trade the number 1 pick for Deshaun Watson. That's what he thinks. I don't think that's going to happen, but that might be interesting. Might be. Blake says that would be dumb if Meyer did that. You know what? I don't know if Urban Meyer is going to shake out in the NFL. I have a hard time with college coaches going to the NFL. That's just me. We'll see how that goes. Also, let's see what else we got here. Blake says, I just told you his record as a starter, losing record in the regular season and losing record in the playoffs. Of course, he's talking about Deshaun Watson, but that number's inflated because of last season. I mean, you got to look at it from that perspective. Kind of silly to just say, hey, we got to throw them all under the bridge there with that. Anyway, give us a call if you want to talk about that at 803-978-1832. Where do you think Watson's going to end up? I mean, that's kind of the big thing with the NFL now, where he's going to end. And we could talk about the Super Bowl, by the way, that's coming up this weekend. Tom Brady said that he may play past 45. Tom Brady will probably play forever. I mean, I don't know what he's doing, but he gets out there. He takes some hits every now and then and still able to play. How long do you think Tom Brady will play? We'll have that up too. You can talk about that at 803-978-1832. One other comment before we go to break. With Trevor, Urban will get fired in 3 years. With Deshaun Watson, he has a shot. Well, we shall see. It's going to be interesting either way. More of the rundown when we come back. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. I do like some hockey. Don't judge me. Be right back, guys. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I was taking a call with a sales rep. Like, since I'm doing my show, I don't want to play the spots for you guys. Nobody wants to hear that. So that's why you couldn't hear me there, Blake. Welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Taking calls this afternoon on Eric Gilbert transferring to Florida and how Florida's really getting their stuff together. Blake reminds me online that Mississippi State is doing a great job with hitting the transfer portal. They got some guys from Texas and everything else. And you know what? I'm not completely sure that the old Pirate's going to do well down there, but you have to give him credit on one thing. He's able to go out and pitch, hey, come to Starkville, which is in the middle of nowhere. Let's just be completely honest. I mean, it really is in the middle of nowhere in Mississippi. But he's convincing guys to come there and play. So there's definitely that in the mix. So really good stuff there on that front with the Pirate down at Mississippi State. You wonder about the culture down there before he was there. And you wonder if he's had to, there's a lot of guys that wanted to transfer in and out. And it's so much to follow. If you're not down there, you're like, what are we doing? To be completely honest with you. So there's that. But getting back to what we were talking about, Eric Gilbert transferring, is this more on the lines of Florida is doing great with getting this guy? Or maybe there's something wrong with LSU? Because you had all those guys opt out. I don't know, man. I really don't on that front. It's kind of hard to see what's going on in the programs. A lot of the pandemic has kind of shut everything off too. Lots of stuff goes online that you see and you're like, I don't know if that's completely with it or not. Maybe LSU is facing some sanctions. You never know. And I think that there's going to be something that comes about from the stuff with, we got to see what happened with the stuff with Darius Geis and everything else. But that's going to be interesting too. So that was one of the things I wanted to bring up today and get your opinion on that. Is it more of this is an LSU problem or Florida just using basically what Kyle Pitts did and saying, hey, you can come here and be the next Kyle Pitts, which is not going to be that bad. But they don't make athletes that are 6'5", 249 pounds that run a 4.7 40 and a 35-inch vertical. That's a big, big boy. Big boy. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number. Bama Boy has a good point. They landed Clemson's running back. We talked about that. Derek Bowman joining Florida down there. Yeah, it's a big deal. And don't forget, they've got former Penn State Steiny, Justin Shorter, the number 1 overall receiver in the 2018 class. I don't know if Emory Jones can throw the football or not. He hasn't shown that he can do that yet. But if he can, he's going to have 2 big targets, in addition to what I think is going to be a great running back in DeMarcus Bowman. Reed online says the transfer portal has ruined college football. You know what? I think I can get on board with that. And I tell you what, how it affects your team is a big deal. It's going to affect Clemson this fall too. And you remember the D word. The D word is something that, people don't like to talk about, but the D word is important. And that word is depth. All right. Clemson lost 2 defensive linemen. Jordan Williams is one, and Niles Pinckney, I believe, was the other. Niles Pinckney, I think, went to Minnesota. Jordan Williams went to Virginia Tech. I could have them mixed up, but that's where they went. These are guys that Pinckney, I believe, graded out as like the best defensive tackle above everybody else. But how will that affect Clemson this fall? They're going to have to train somebody up. Now, granted, they've got guys that are in the mix, but the reality is wouldn't you feel better if you're the Clemson defense, if you've got those 2 guys that can come in and set themselves up in case something happens with Brian Brzee, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, it can affect you just like that. And it is a big deal. And the transfer portal is called, I think Dave Clawson from Wake Forest called it the trash portal. That's kind of where it comes down to that. And of course, Noah with it online, Mr. Mike Jones transferred the linebacker too. Yeah. And stuff like that. I mean, you end up with a guy that was a starter for you or a pivotal backup that they have to go somewhere else. And that's not good. I mean, if you, especially on the recruiting front where you're like, all right, I've penciled this guy in. Now I've got to figure out, wow, what am I going to do to replace him? I mean, the transfer portal really is, I mean, it can be great for your team, but it can also be hot dog water. It's basically what it boils down to. Your opinions on the transfer portal are always welcome at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Blake says Mullen will continue to win the East regular season championship until the Gator fans run him off. I don't know why they would run him off. I mean, he may leave to go to the NFL. I don't know. Never underestimate Mullen's ability to develop a quarterback you thought had no chance. Well, yeah, you could see that with Trask. That's important too. So what else? Oh, and Noah says, I would take Chester Kimbrough from Florida, who's in the transfer portal in a heartbeat. Yeah, that's true too. And a lot of these coaches, they're going to have to evolve and say, hey, you know what? Going to the transfer portal is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. You're going to have to develop that quickly because if not, you're going to get left behind. And teams like Florida and what they're doing are going to bite you in the butt because they're going to end up with a lot of talent. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to talk about that. We're also taking calls on where Deshaun Watson will go. I'm getting some feedback on that on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Be sure to follow me there. Good information there if you want to check that out. You can also watch the show on the Fox Sports Radio 1400 Facebook page. Yeah, go and check that out. Converse with the folks that are there. I'm Rob Sanders. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, now you're being silly, Noah. No, today, gentlemen, I'm drinking. And if you guys can help me, I'm serious. I'll pay you. If you find any Red Bull sugar-free pear, that's what I really like to drink during the show. But I was feeling a little drawn down today. So I'm drinking a cherry Coke, or no, this is just a regular Coke energy drink. So it's not absolutely the best for me, but I really like the pear, sugar-free pear Red Bull, but they don't have anymore. So, although I will drink some Dr. Pepper, I'm not above it. Let's make sure we understand that. I would also drink it's out there, Blake. I'm no snob either, by the way. I'll drink like the generic, like they used to call it like a Piggly Wiggly. It was like Dr. Pig or whatever. I'll drink that. I'm not even trying to front and act silly on that. I heard Ingles has that. Oh, don't y'all tell Jackpot I'm shopping at Ingles. He may kick me in the face. I don't need all that. By the way, if you missed last night's show, go and watch it. Jackpot lost his mind on Georgia fans. It was absolutely hilarious. Hilarious, ladies and gentlemen. Crazy. Mountain Lightning. Yeah, I'll drink that. Not ashamed of that either. Welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world in the iHeartRadio app. I found this story last night. It kind of made me laugh for just a moment. I wanted to share it with you really quick here. We are taking calls on Deshaun Watson. Where you think he's going to end up? Do you think the Panthers should overpay to get him? Is he worth 3 first-round picks and Christian McCaffrey? Because that's what some people are saying it's probably going to take. I don't know. I honestly don't know. We'll have to check on that. But the story that I've got for you is really interesting. And with that, I will give it to you really quick here. Last night I watched the majority of the Royal Rumble for the WWF. And then I woke up this morning and I found this story where the starting right guard for the UCF Knights, his name is Parker Boudreaux, Parker Boudreaux, has decided, he's probably going to leave the team and go to wrestle into the WWF. So he's a former Notre Dame offensive lineman, had a concussion, missed the entire season, and may have played his final set in college football. He's now going to try to be an NFL lineman, or excuse me, not an NFL lineman, a WWE wrestler. I'm so back. I'm so old in my thinking. I'm trying, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really trying. But he tweeted out something saying, hey, let's get ready to rumble with himself in front of some fire, etc. Looks like a big old guy. Anyway, I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking, like, which former Clemson or South Carolina player do you think has the best capability of walking in and being a WWE superstar as of right now? For me, for Clemson, it's Ben Boulware or Christian Wilkins, excuse me. Both of those guys, big guys. Wilkins, I think, could walk in and probably do it tomorrow, as athletic as he is and as big as he is. For South Carolina, you could look at several guys, but the first one I think of with Clemson would be Christian Wilkins and Ben Boulware, the former linebacker. For South Carolina, when I look at that team, I can think of there's guys that have been big that have come through there. I'm just trying to think of who would be the best fit. Of course, they have remember the Patriot is a former South Carolina player. So I was just thinking about that. I don't know. My brain's warped when it comes to that. Blake says we had a girl basketball player that got in with the WWE. She's really good and pretty. Yeah. Yeah. Blake also says, I must be feeling good today. Usually on Monday, I rant and start controversy. Well, I mean, I can be controversial. I've got it written in my notes, and we can talk about this really quick. You know, and I think I said this, I don't know if I said this last week or not, but I was looking at the Georgia football schedule for next season. Georgia fans are priceless because they'll tell you that, you know, Georgia plays in the SEC and the SEC is great and blah, blah, blah. When I look at the Georgia football schedule for next year, the Georgia schedule for next year, and this is not a joke, they play Clemson, UAB, South Carolina. They go on the road to Vanderbilt. Arkansas's at home. They go to Auburn. Kentucky's at home. Florida's in Jacksonville. Mizzou's at home. They play at Tennessee. They have Charleston Southern and Georgia Tech. The toughest game on the Georgia schedule next season is the Clemson game. Now, I will give the Bulldogs fans this, and I stand behind this. If they win that first game of the season, as long as they don't have a slip up like they did a couple years ago, where South Carolina went in as a 17-point underdog into Athens and beat them, they should coast to an undefeated season. That's the thing that bothers me, though, with a lot of the SEC folks. They think, just because it's an SEC schedule, it's hard. It's hard. No, it's not. What is hard about this game, this schedule? I'm being really honest here. Auburn's probably in rebuilding mode. I mean, they're definitely in rebuilding mode with a new coach. Florida is in transition mode. Yes, I talked about them picking up some guys from the portal, but we don't know how those guys are going to work out yet. You're telling me that I'm supposed to judge your schedule on Mizzou at home, Tennessee on the road, and let's not forget Charleston Southern at home and playing at Georgia Tech, where you don't even have to leave the state. Get out of here, man. The toughest game on the Georgia schedule, even though they'll tell you, Clemson fans, that we're going to beat Clemson by 37 points. That's how the Georgia fans want to run their mouths. It's actually kind of funny. But their schedule after September the 4th, you could argue that they're going to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams, 7 teams that are going to have losing records. They have 4 games, I think, where they'll play teams with winning records, one of them being Clemson, and the other 3 may finish 7 or 8 wins. Your schedule is not what you think it is. And by the way, this is the same crutch that a lot of SEC fans, they want to hang their hat on that. But it's not that impressive, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I know you can come back and say, well, Clemson schedules this. Yeah, and I completely get that. But to think that you're a step above is kind of a fabrication. It's not really that big of a step, in my opinion. 803-978-1832. Out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Mr. Saunders.
What's up, buddy?
How you doing, brother?
I'm holding my own. How are you, friend?
I am. I'm holding my own. I'm going to repeat you, and I agree with that statement. I'm just holding on to.
Okay. Well, there you go with that.
I just want to give you a compliment about. I'm glad somebody finally explained. Even though these SEC people, it's not going to change them anything. They're going to do the same thing that you just discussed, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that in the SEC. But I'm glad somebody did their homework like you did and broke down the schedule to explain and try to make these people understand that their schedule, the ones that you just said, it's not that difficult. It's not what they're making it out to be.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you on that. You're absolutely right. And I can deal with the SEC West folks. If you're Mississippi State or Ole Miss or even Arkansas, and you look at the schedule, and we'll use Mississippi State because I know Blake is a Mississippi State fan online. They've got to play LSU every year. They've got to play Alabama. They've got to play Auburn and Texas A&M. So basically, a quarter of their schedule is going to be against some really good teams. So I can buy that. But teams from the East. Too. Teams from the East just need to be quiet. Just shh. It's not that impressive, to be completely honest with you. It's really not.
And Alabama, you can throw into this, not that they don't play that strong of an SEC schedule either.
Well, but you have to take into effect too that Alabama can't schedule themselves. So I mean, and I think that's fair. I mean, they can't. Hey, we're going to play ourselves every year. But when you look to the schedule on the other side, I mean, they do have to play Auburn, they do have to play LSU, they do have to play Texas A&M. Those 3 games are pretty tough, but the rest of the schedule is like, okay.
Yes, I agree with it. Those 3 teams are tough, but what I'm trying to point out is their non-conference game, they never schedule anybody that will offer them a challenge.
That is absolutely true. They normally schedule at neutral sites, and they look silly. But
correct.
But it's the same thing that I brought this stat up, and people get upset when I say it. In the regular season, Alabama played 2 teams that finished in the final top 25 in the regular season.
Yeah.
Same amount of teams that Clemson played. And you can use Clemson, you can use Notre Dame, pick whatever team you want. The reality is that they played 2 ranked teams that finished ranked at the end of the season. And it's black and white, crystal clear. I mean, I don't know what else you want. You can't lean on this SEC crutch forever. It just makes you look silly.
No, they're going to live on it forever. Believe me, that's not going to change.
Well, no, it is going to change, and I'll tell you why. Because the way the college football playoff is going to eventually be, they're going to be looked at a little bit more harshly on what they schedule for their non-conference, which Alabama is ahead of the curve in this because they did schedule. I think they've got a home and home scheduled at Ohio State, and I think they've got home and homes with other teams too. But they're not going to look at it from a perspective of, hey, we scheduled a neutral site game. That's not even going to work. I mean, it's really not.
Another thing that doesn't work is a porthole. I call it a porthole. Often gives me a hard time about calling it the porthole, but that's what I call it. It's not good for college football, like the guy said before. Like, it's ruining it. Ever since it started, I didn't like it, and I hope it changes. But I don't see that changing either. And one more thing, Rob.
Sure, buddy.
Trying to make this as fast as possible. Lawton has been a few years ago. He started, trying to Brad Brunell, trying to, maybe move him along to somewhere else. Maybe, if he could get the hint. I'm all on that wagon too. I'm trying to move him out of here, man. I've had enough. That's all I've got to say, man. I enjoyed talking with you.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us on the rundown.
Thank you, bye.
All right. Well, we could talk about Brad Brownell too, and the debacle that was up there at Duke this weekend. Duke was 6-4, 6-5 basketball program, doing very well at all. Joe Lunardi had them projected as out. Now, remember, this is a Clemson team that 2 weeks ago they were 9-1, ranked 12th in the country. Just saying. Now all of a sudden they are a gong show. It's really bad. Same thing goes for South Carolina too. With what happened up at Vanderbilt? Oh, just ugly, man, ugly. All right, final break of the show. We'll come back with more for you in just a moment. You're listening to The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Blake, Louisiana Tech was 5-5 last year. That's not exactly a stellar thing to be calling something that's not a cupcake. You should, as an SEC, ACC, Power 5 team, you should be able to beat those teams. Memphis, I don't know how good they're going to be. NC State is traditionally hot dog water. So let's just stop with that nonsense. NC State, I think that didn't they lose to Liberty this year? I mean, it's not like it's completely out there. Allen says UGA plays tough non-conference opponents whenever possible. Really? Okay. Well, let's just bring up the Georgia schedule just so we can have that in front of us. Final segment of the rundown this afternoon here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. And I tell you what, man, we've had a good show. Talking a little bit about where Deshaun Watson's going to go, some SEC, ACC scheduling. Out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to the rundown.
Rob, stop it with the scheduling.
Why?
Stop it.
I like the scheduling stuff. What are you talking about?
It's your favorite fan, Al. Alan, how you doing?
Alan, what's going on, buddy? You don't like me talking about schedule because it hurts your feelings? What's up with that, man?
It kills my feelings.
Well, I mean, people don't like it when you bring the truth out in front of them, man.
Well, you do understand other bigger schools cancel games, and we have to scurry around and find opponents, don't you?
Define we first. You're talking about Georgia?
Yes.
Okay. Well, tell me who's canceled on Georgia. I maybe there's something I've missed.
Oregon has canceled on Georgia. Ohio State has canceled on Georgia.
Well, under that notion, when did they cancel? Was it in the past 5 seasons?
Yeah, it's been in the past few years. We're lucky to be able to get a game with Charleston Southern or whoever we've plugged in there. Georgia has been over backwards to play the Notre Dames, to play the Colorados, to play the Arizona States, to play whoever will play. And you know what they found out? Nobody wants to play.
I disagree with that because I think that teams would jump at that chance to play, but I think a lot of it comes down to does Georgia want to schedule home and homes? That has something to do with it too.
Clemson, a traditional team Georgia has always played, will not play every year.
Well, I think that I'm in the boat of, and that's one of the reasons I bring up the scheduling stuff is because traditional rivalries like that, it's closer to Athens than it is to Columbia from Clemson. And that's something that should happen.
Miles.
That's what I'm saying. It should happen.
I'm 53 years old. I grew up playing Clemson season opener every year.
That should be something that's in the mix. And South Carolina should play North Carolina as well. I completely agree with you on that.
Oh, by the way, UGA played North Carolina just a couple years ago to kick the season off. They finally would sign to play Georgia. Georgia looks for any opponent. They played the Boise States, won one, lost one. They played everybody that will play them. They can't get people to play them. It's really not as easy as you think.
But you say that, but then you look at other schools and they're able to schedule matchups with out of conference teams. LSU's played Texas. We can go down the list and look.
That's traditional. That's the next state over. That's traditional. The thing is, Georgia has bent over backwards to change the filler schedule that all of you guys gripe about Alabama playing. And now Alabama has decided to play other non-con opponents like FSU. They've decided to play some other schools that are more in the mix than the little, the little Samfords and stuff like that.
Right.
But
I think you and I agree on one point. The traditional rivals should happen with Georgia playing Clemson, Absolutely. North Carolina playing South Carolina, etc. Maybe we don't agree on one other point of it, but I've given my plan out before. 10 conference games, 1 in-state rivalry game, and then your other game is a game where you help out an FCS opponent. That's the way the schedule should be. Then no one can duck anything.
I respect that. But if anybody thinks Georgia 5 or 10 years ago wanted to play Charleston Southern, as their 4th game this year, or whatever the name of that school is, they're out of their mind. It was never in the cards. We're looking to play anybody and everybody, preferably upper echelon, but they can't find the games.
Well, hopefully they will get in the mix and do what Alabama's trying to do, scheduling Ohio State with a home and home. I think they've confirmed that. LSU, by the way, is doing a home and home with Clemson in the upcoming season. So maybe that's being softened a little bit.
Canceled with UGA, so I don't trust Ohio State to do much anything. But I don't know what else to say, Rob. These schedules are made years ahead of time, and when you see something fishy like Charleston Southern, it wasn't in there. It originally wasn't in there.
Well, fair enough, man. Hey, I appreciate you calling the show and trying to straighten me out here.
Love your show. Love what you do. You aggravate the hell out of me. You do a great job. Have a good day.
Appreciate it, buddy. That's what I'm here for, is to aggravate people. I mean, that's just what I do. Alan calling the show. He's upset because he says people don't schedule Georgia. I'm not feeling that. I mean, he may be right. You may have had a couple of teams that have canceled, but I think if you really got into the mix, you could schedule somebody better than Charleston Southern. No disrespect to the Bucks, by the way. Just saying. I think a lot of teams, I'm not saying they duck, but I don't think they go out of their way. I think if you were an athletic director that had a, I don't know what the term I can use here, but if you're an athletic director that says, you know what, we're going to play the absolute best and not come at the schedule with, oh, well, we're going to have Austin P or Middle Tennessee on the schedule. No, if you're a Power 5 team and you come at it with, look, we're going to play, I mean, under my 10-game conference schedule, that helps out a lot. But if there's 8 games, if you're going to have 11 of them where it's 8 of the games that are in conference, and then you have 3 non-conference games that are Power 5 opponents, and then 1 so-called warm-up game, I'd have a lot of respect for you. But apparently nobody really wants to do that. The SEC would go a long way with me if their schools did that, where it's like, yeah, you know what? Our conference champion went 10-2. But you know what those 2 losses were? They were a loss to, let's say, Alabama lost to Georgia, and they went out of conference and played Ohio State. That's a more valid champion in my mind than, oh, we went 12-0. Not buying that at all, but athletic directors need to do that. And I understand that things are way, way out there. All right, really quick before we get out of here, final call of the show. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Hey, Rob, it's Ray.
Hey.
Real quick, I do agree with you about this college football scheduling.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I don't even like when South Carolina plays Wofford or Clemson plays Citadel. I mean, I despise. I think Power 5 should only play Power 5. And I know you got to go real soon. I do appreciate your show, but boy, my Gamecocks laid an egg in Vandy. Good golly! But anyway, just want to get your take on the big schools playing the little weak schools. Even though Citadel's beaten us a couple times, but still, I just don't. I don't like that. I think you're a big boy. You should play a big boy. You shouldn't play the smaller schools like that. Just get your take.
All right, man. Thanks so much. I'm out of time today, but I like South Carolina playing those schools because it helps them out with their athletic funding. So keep the money in state. Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk is next.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Yes, he will be here with you from 4 to 6.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
He's looking at us from the castle down there in Lexington. All right, more of the Rundown tomorrow. Appreciate you guys joining the show. We'll be back at it tomorrow on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I appreciate you guys, man. You guys rock over there. Thanks so much, all right? Talk to you guys later on. Hey, if you haven't watched Jackpot's video from last night, go watch it. The one we did together, he lost his mind. I'm going to tweet it out. It's really good. Talk to you guys soon. See you later.